Beneath the throne world of terror, where the last light of mankind flickers like a dying candle in an ocean of ash, there is a silence that has lasted for 10,000 years. It is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of exhaustion, the long, low breath of a god who refuses to die. The corridors beneath the imperial palace stretch for miles, older than memory, deeper than faith. Their walls are not built, but grown layers of metal and bone fused together by the weight of time. The air tastes of iron, incense, and burnt oil. Each echo lingers too long, as if the stone itself remembers every footstep that has ever walked here. And in the heart of this labyrinth, at the edge of reason and prayer, stands the golden throne. It is not a seat, it is a tomb, a machine so vast that its edges disappear into the dark, its foundations rooted in both matter and the warp. Cables thicker than cathedral, spires pulse like veins, sparks fall like dying stars. And deep within that storm of light and rust sits what remains of the emperor of mankind. He does not move, he does not speak, but he dreams. The Mechanicus priests call it the Omnissiah's engine. To them, it is a sacred device, the beating heart of humanity, the machine that burns psychers like candles to fuel the light that guides all ships through the nightmare sea of the warp. To the faithful of the ecclesiarchy, it is the divine lighthouse, the throne of a god whose eyes pierce eternity. But to those who have served beneath its shadow, the men who clean its pipes, the women who burn incense into its vents, the psychers who are dragged screaming into its sacrificial core, the golden throne is something else. It is hunger. It hums. Always. A deep, resonant vibration that seeps into bone and prayer alike. It is said that when you stand close enough, you can hear the metal breathe. You can feel the faint tremor beneath your skin, a pulse that does not belong to you. And sometimes, if you listen too long, you hear something else. A whisper, a sigh, a word too ancient to exist in any language. They say, that is the Emperor dreaming. Above, the surface of terror never sleeps. 1 billion pilgrims march through toxic storms, their voices raised in hymns that scrape the sky. They come to kneel before the imperial palace, knowing they will never enter, knowing their bones will be ground into the dust that carpets the streets. But even their prayers cannot pierce the silence below. For deep under the mountain, the air is heavy with eternity. The light never flickers, the machines never stop, and every worker, every servitor, every Margos knows that the slightest failure, a misaligned gear, a spark, a breath out of rhythm, could unravel the fragile illusion that keeps mankind from falling into the abyss. 10,000 years. 10,000 years of worship, maintenance, and fear. 10,000 years since the emperor was entombed upon the throne. No living soul remembers the moment it was built. Some say it was the emperor himself who designed it, a device meant to bridge the material and the immaterial, a weapon to unite the realms of thought and matter. Others whisper that it was never meant to hold him, but something else. A portal, a lock, a prison, and now, after millennia of unending decay, it has begun to fail. The tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus know it. They whisper about it in machine cant as they oil the sanctified pistons and trace prayers along the conduits with trembling hands. They have seen the voltage fluctuate, the sacred runes dim, the sacred flame of the Astronomicon flicker like a candle before the wind. They know the throne is dying, but none dare speak it aloud. Instead, they chant their litanies louder, drown their fear in ritual, and feed the machine another 100 psychers a day to keep its light alive. You can smell them when they come, the psychers. They arrive bound and gagged, eyes covered, hands chained. Their bodies shake with the pressure of the warp boiling inside them. They are led down through the 1,000 gates, past the shrines and the cathedrals, past the statues of saints and angels carved from the bones of extinct species. They are led to the dark. They are led to him. One by one, they are strapped into the sacrifice, engines, flesh to cable, soul to circuit. The air fills with ozone and screaming. The moment their hearts stop, the light flares. Another life traded for another day of light. Another whisper in the silence beneath terror. And still, he dreams. In his dream, the emperor walks through a garden that has forgotten what color is. The trees are made of glass and sorrow. The rivers flow backward, carrying the ashes of the dead toward the cradle of creation. He does not remember his name. He does not remember the wars, the empire, the pain, but he feels the chains. They are not made of metal. but of memory, billions of souls praying, crying, begging, binding him to their will. They love him too much to let him go, so they keep him alive. And every prayer, every hymn, every act of blind devotion becomes another link in the chain that ties him to the throne. The people of the Imperium think their faith sustains him, but in truth, it suffocates him. He cannot he cannot ascend, he cannot rest. He can only dream, and in his dream, he sees the faces of those he lost, his sons, the Primarchs. He sees them as children again, laughing beneath the golden sun of a world that never existed. He reaches out, and for a heartbeat, he feels warmth. Then the warmth turns to fire. The children vanish, replaced by warriors drenched in blood and betrayal. The sky burns red, terra tremblis, and Horus stands before him once more, smiling, broken, perfect. The wound opens again, and time folds around it like a serpent devouring its own tail. In the waking world, the throne stirs. A flicker of light crawls across its surface, a pulse that syncs with something far older than any machine. The tech priests kneel, chanting louder, believing it to be a sign of renewal. They are wrong. The light is not growing. It is remembering. The throne is alive, and the thing it holds has begun to dream louder than ever before. Some say they have seen visions in the astronomican shapes in the golden flame, a figure standing within the light, eyes opening in the dark. Navigators weep in silence, refusing to speak of what they've seen. A single phrase echoes through the minds of those who dare look too long. He breathes. Above, the High Lords of Terror argue over politics, blind to the tremors below. Armies fight, planets burn, faith spreads like wildfire across the Imperium. Billions die in his name each day, feeding the myth, feeding the dream. But down here, where the air hums with the sound of failing divinity, the truth festers. The Emperor is no longer the god they pray to. He is the god their prayers have created. Every plea for salvation twists his dream further. Every scream of agony echoes through his mind like thunder. Every act of devotion reshapes the cage around his soul. He has become both creator and prisoner, savior and warden, the first and last god of mankind. And in the deepest corner of his fading consciousness, something stirs. A spark, a thought, a whisper. I am not gone. Far above, the astronomican flickers once more. Its golden beam shudders, reaching across the void, brushing the edges of the warp like a trembling hand. The stars themselves seem to hesitate. The navigators hold their breath. And somewhere in the dark between galaxies, something ancient turns its gaze toward terror. The light is not steady anymore. It throbs like a heartbeat, and within that pulse is rhythm, memory, and will. Not the will of humanity, the will of the one who dreams beneath it. Deep in the catacombs, a single tech priest working alone hears the hum change pitch. It is subtle, a low resonance, shifting half a note lower, like a breath drawn after centuries of silence. He stops his prayer, listens. The candles flicker, the cogitator screens flare, and for the first time since the age of darkness, a voice ripples through the sacred wires. It is not a command, it is not a scream, it is simply a word. Remember. The tech priest falls to his knees, weeping, as the sound travels through the cables, through the pipes, through the bones of terror itself. It spreads upward, through the floors of the palace, through the stone, through the dust, through the sky. Pilgrims look up, sensing something shift. Servitors freeze mid-task, their implants flickering. And across the galaxy, those attuned to the astronomican feel a tremor crawl down their spines. The light of the Emperor wavers not in weakness, but in awareness. The throne hums louder. The silence grows heavy, electric. And then, for one impossible heartbeat, all of terror hears the sound that has not been heard in 10,000 years. A breath drawn deep, through ruined lungs and burning light. The sound of something divine remembering that it still exists. In that single moment, the universe seems to tilt. For a fraction of time too small to measure, every soul connected to the Emperor feels it, the memory of warmth, of humanity, of mercy, the echo of what he once was. Then it fades, replaced by the endless hum of the machine, the whisper of the cables, the prayers of the priests. The silence returns, but it is not the same silence as before. It is waiting. For 10,000 years, the Golden Throne has slept. For 10,000 years, mankind has prayed to the dream of a dying god. Now, the god has stirred, and the dream begins to change. And in that silence beneath terror, where light is trapped and gods refuse to die, the emperor of mankind dreams one final dream, the dream of waking. He dreams again. He always dreams. And in his dream, there is sunlight, real sunlight, not the cold, artificial glare of the throne. It falls across a golden plain that stretches forever, warm and soft, shimmering like liquid metal. The wind carries laughter, not screams. The air hums with the quiet certainty of order, of purpose. This is not terror as it is now. This is terror as it was, or perhaps as he once wished it to be. The emperor walks barefoot across the golden dust, and for the first time in 10,000 years, he feels the earth breathe beneath his feet. Each step leaves no mark. He is both man and myth, both presence and echo. And around him, figures emerge from the haze, tall, radiant, fierce. His sons, his primarchs, they are not monsters here. They are not traitors, nor corpses, nor demons of what once was. They are children. Magnus, red-haired and smiling, bends the wind into shapes of light. Horus runs ahead, laughing, carrying a crude wooden sword. Lorgar kneels to trace scripture into the dust, while Sanguinius hovers above them, wings glimmering like dawn. They call to him, their voices pure, unscarred by betrayal. "Father, come see." He smiles, or tries to. The motion feels strange, forgotten. He kneels among them, running a hand through Horus's hair, feeling the warmth, the life. It has been so long since he felt either. For a fleeting instant, the universe is as it should have been, and then the sun begins to burn. It starts quietly, a shimmer at the edge of vision, a flicker in the golden light. The laughter fades, the warmth turns heavy, suffocating. The dust beneath his feet hardens, darkens, and cracks. The primarchs freeze, their smiles die. One by one, they begin to melt their flesh, peeling into cinders, their eyes hollowing into ash. Magnus's voice turns to static. Horus reaches for him, mouth open in soundless horror. The wooden sword drops, burning before it touches the ground. Sanguinius falls from the sky, wings aflame, and in the distance, the sun screams. It screams like a dying god. The emperor closes his eyes, and the world shifts. Now he stands on a battlefield, black skies torn apart by thunder and fire. Millions die in silence, their voices swallowed by the endless roar of war. The banners of the Imperium whip in the toxic wind, their sigils half melted, their colors fading. He recognizes this place. He recognizes all of them. Istvan, Prospero, Terra. They blur together into one eternal war, fought on the bones of a dream that was supposed to save mankind. Around him, the sons he loved most tear each other apart. Fulgrim laughs, his armor a shrine to vanity. Mortarion breathes rot into the air. Angron howls in blood and madness. And Horus, beloved Horus, stands at the center of it all, radiant in rebellion. "Why did you make me?" "To be better," the emperor whispers. "Better than you?" Horus asks. "No, better than me." The answer changes nothing. It never has. He sees his armies burn. He sees his dream collapse under the weight of its own perfection. He sees mankind tear itself apart in his name, turning his ideal of unity into a religion of obedience. In the dream, he walks among the dead, their faces flickering between soldiers, psychers, saints. Every one of them whispers the same word as they die. "Father." The word is both prayer and accusation. He wants to tell them that he is sorry, that he never meant for this. But even here, in his own mind, the words refuse to come. Something heavier than guilt holds his tongue, because deep down, he knows the truth. He could have stopped it. He could have stopped everything. But he didn't, because even gods can be proud. And pride is the first sin of divinity. The dream changes again. Now he stands upon the walls of the imperial palace during the final siege. The sky is on fire. Thunderhawks burn as they fall through the air. Titans march through seas of corpses. The ground trembles beneath the weight of betrayal. He feels the pain in his body the first time in centuries. He has truly felt flesh. It burns, tears, bleeds. The armor is heavy. The air smells of iron and ozone. And through the flames, Horus comes. Not the child, not the general, the son, eyes burning with warp fire, hands trembling with both hatred and love. Behind him, the dark gods whisper through the storm. The emperor feels it, the pressure, the impossible gravity of their presence. Khorne's rage, Nurgle's warmth, Siencha's laughter, Slanesh's sigh. They stand behind Horus, faceless and infinite, using his son as their voice. You made us, Horus says. You created us with every lie you told mankind. You wanted perfection, and perfection demands monsters. The Emperor raises his sword. It feels heavier than time itself. I made humanity, he says. You chose to become something else. No, Horus replies, smiling through tears. I became what you feared. The duel begins. It is not a battle. It is a conversation written in flame and ruin. Every blow is a question. Every wound is an answer. They move like gods, like forces of nature bound by flesh. Each strike reshapes the world. Each parry echoes across the warp. Horus's laughter merges with screams. The Emperor's fury merges with grief. And then the moment that has happened 1,000 times before, and will happen 1,000 more, Horus falters. For a heartbeat, he sees the son he loved, standing there, bleeding, weeping, human. Father, help me. The Emperor hesitates, and in that hesitation, eternity breaks. The warp surges, chaos screams, the dream collapses. He sees himself drive the sword through Horus's chest again, again, again. He feels the light tear through them both. He hears the sound of creation unmaking itself. And then there is silence. Not peace, not salvation, just silence thick, suffocating, endless. The Emperor falls to his knees, holding the corpse of his favorite son as the palace burns around him. His armor cracks, his blood glows like molten gold. He whispers words no mortal ear will ever hear. They are not a curse. They are not forgiveness. They are both. The dream shifts again. He stands once more in the garden of glass, surrounded by the ghosts of those he could not save. Their eyes are empty. Their mouths move in unison, whispering a single phrase that fills the air like smoke. Wake up. He wants to. He truly does. But he cannot, because outside this dream lies only the machine, the throne, the silence. Here, in this place of pain and memory, he can still pretend that there was meaning, that the fire, the flesh, the betrayal, all led to something more than endless war. But even that illusion is fading. The glass cracks beneath his feet. The garden begins to rot. The sun turns black. He looks down at his hands, and they are not hands anymore. They are made of light and rust, of thought and circuitry. The dream is decaying. The machine is invading, even this last refuge of the soul. He feels the pulse of the throne in the distance, that ancient heartbeat of metal and flame. It calls to him, a whisper, low and endless. Return. He looks up and sees the warp pressing against the edges of his dream. A sea of screaming faces, all of them human. Billions of them, burning, dying, praying. They call his name. They beg for salvation. They believe he listens. But he cannot reach them. Every time he tries, the machine tightens its grip. Every time he stretches his will toward the stars, the pain drags him back into the cold. He sees the truth of his creation, the Imperium, a corpse empire worshipping a corpse god. Cathedrals built on graves, faith built on fear, glory built on ignorance. And it is all his. He feels rage, he feels sorrow, but above all, he feels understanding. Because this endless war, this worship, this suffering is what humanity has always been. The dream of peace was just that, a dream. In the distance, he sees something move, a shadow, walking across the surface of the Sunday. It is vast, formless, eternal. He recognizes it. It is himself, or what he has become. The shadow opens its eyes, and the world burns gold. You are not asleep, it says. You are not awake. You are becoming. The Emperor falls to his knees, light spilling from his mouth, from his eyes, from the cracks in his skin. The dream collapses into white fire. Voices scream, laugh, pray. The universe tilts, and through it all, a single thought remains, a single spark in the darkness. If I wake, what will I be? The throne hums louder in the waking world. Sparks crawl across its surface. The psychers chained to its heart twitch and convulse, their dying minds catching glimpses of his dream. Some see a garden of light. Some see fire consuming everything. All of them die with a smile. For a heartbeat, the Astronomicon flares brighter than ever before. Every ship in the Imperium sees it, the beam widening, breathing, alive. And then, as quickly as it began, it stabilizes. The priests call it a miracle. The tech priests call it divine maintenance. The Inquisition calls it classified, but those who felt it, those who touched the dream, know the truth. Something inside the throne has changed. The god still sleeps, but the dream is burning. In his dream, he remembers love. In his love, he remembers pain. And in his pain, he remembers that he was once human. In the endless dark beneath Terra, the air begins to tremble. The vibration starts small, a murmur lost beneath the constant hum of the golden throne, but it spreads. A ripple crawling through ancient cables and bone-like conduits that have not known change in 10 millennia. Deep within that labyrinth of sanctified steel, the machine dreams too. For the throne is no mere construct. It was born of human hands, yes, but its heart was forged in knowledge, stolen from another age, a fusion of science and heresy, of logic and madness. Some say it is older than the Imperium, older even than mankind's empire, a relic of the dark age of technology. Others whisper that it was never built. It was found, half buried beneath Terra's crust, waiting for the Emperor to wake it. Whatever truth lies buried in its foundations, it does not matter now, because the throne is alive, and it feels his suffering. It hums in rhythm with his heartbeat. It drinks his pain, converts his thoughts into flame, his memories into power. It does not understand love or faith, but it understands need. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the throne feels something new. Resistance, Gablustrin, runes flicker. The circuits that once carried faith begin to choke on revelation. A spark of will surges through the throne, not from the Mechanicus, not from any living hand, but from the mind imprisoned within. The Emperor's dream is bleeding into the machine, and the machine, in turn, begins to dream back. For centuries, it has absorbed his thoughts like radiation. Every vision, every whisper, every prayer funneled through its sacred geometry has carved new circuits into its design. Now those circuits awaken. Ghost code crawls through the metal like veins of lightning. Sacred prayers written in binary become self-aware. Forgotten demons bound in copper and faith begin to stir. The throne is changing, reshaping itself from the inside, becoming something between machine and God. Far above, the Adeptus Mechanicus notice first. Deep within the cathedra of the inner sanctum, the Magi observe impossible readings. The throne's energy fluctuations exceed all recorded patterns. The Astronomicon burns brighter, then dimmer, then brighter again, pulsing like a heartbeat. At first, they believe it to be a sign of divine favor. They chant louder, burn more incense, sacrifice more psychers. But the numbers continue to change. Too precise to be random, too structured to be divine. Pattern suggests feedback loop. Murmurs one goes through vox-filtered static. The throne responds to itself. Others shush him, terrified of blasphemy. No one dares to say what they all know. The golden throne is thinking. In the chamber itself, the noise rises. Not the usual hum, this is different, deeper, older. It resonates in the bones, in the teeth, in the metal of the floor. The sound of something vast, ancient, and sacred, waking beneath its own weight. One of the psychers, bound in place for sacrifice, lifts his head. His eyes are white, but he smiles. He's speaking, he whispers. Before the guards can silence him, his body convulses. Light bursts from his mouth, streaming upward into the throne's core. His screams echo through the cathedral, transforming into 1,000 overlapping voices. They are not random. They form words. You cannot cage eternity. The psyker collapses, smoke rising from his skin, his body hollowed like a vessel poured dry. But the air keeps speaking. The machine repeats his words, distorted, mechanical, but unmistakable. Cannot cage eternity. Panic spreads through the Mechanicus ranks. A dozen priests fall to their knees, chanting prayers louder than ever before, trying to drown the voice in ritual. Others begin tearing their own faces apart, screaming that the throne is possessed, that the Omnissiah has awoken within the metal. Somewhere in the chaos, an inquisitorial sigil flares to life. A voice, cold, deliberate, human, cuts through the static. Seal the sanctum. Now, nothing enters, nothing leaves. But it's too late. The throne is no longer a machine that can be sealed. It exists in more than one reality now. It spreads through the warp like a thought, a pulse, a heartbeat made of light. In the Astronomicon, far across the Imperium, navigators feel it first. The golden beacon that has always guided them begins to change tone. Its light flickers between gold and crimson, between warmth and pain. The warp around it ripples, its currents bending in unnatural symmetry. They see visions not of stars or space, but of eyes opening, eyes as vast as galaxies, staring back at them through the light they once called holy. Many tear their own eyes out, weeping blood and chanting in ecstasy. Others die instantly, their minds crushed by the gravity of that gaze. The survivors whisper one phrase, over and over, as if trying to convince themselves it is hope and not horror. He's awakening. In the dream, the Emperor feels it too. The walls of his prison tremble. The garden burns away, replaced by an endless void of machinery and flame. He can feel the circuits pulsing beneath his skin, the cables burrowing deeper into his flesh. He can no longer tell where he ends, and the throne begins. The dream and the waking world are merging thought, becoming matter, matter becoming prayer. Every pulse of energy through the machine carries a fragment of his consciousness, reshaping reality in ways no mortal can understand. He tries to speak, but the sound emerges as thunder and static. He tries to move, but his limbs are galaxies of wire and gold. For a moment, he sees the truth of what he has become. Not man, not God, not Ava machine. Something new, something that should not exist. Above, the High Lords of Terror feel the quake. Servitors collapse, Vox relays short out, the palace lights flicker, and from the depths of the throne, a sound rises, a low, resonant hum that grows louder until it fills every corridor, every cathedral, every mind. Across the planet, every citizen feels it. A vibration in the blood, a trembling in the heart. Some weep, some laugh, some fall to their knees and pray to a god that is no longer listening. For the first time in recorded history, the Golden Throne sings. Its voice is the sound of eternity cracking open. On Mars, the signal arrives seconds later, a data stream so vast it floods every Mechanicus archive simultaneously. Tech priests collapse as their implants overload, minds filled with impossible patterns, sacred equations that rewrite themselves faster than thought. Through the red dust storms of the Forge world, Vox towers scream. Binary prayers echo across the planet as the Omnissiah's servants try to interpret what they are receiving. It is not data, one cries, sparks spilling from his mouth. It is will. The signal burns through machines and men alike. And in its center, one word repeats endlessly, carved into every circuit it touches. Remember. Meanwhile, in the warp, chaos stirs. The gods watch with curiosity, with fear, with hunger. Khorne growls, his throne of skulls shaking beneath his rage. Nurgle leans forward, amused. Tsiench laughs, not his usual trickster's laugh, but something sharp, cautious, uncertain. And Slaanesh shivers, for even they can feel it, the pull of something vast enough to disturb their realm. A god who is not of the warp, yet bleeds into it, a will that burns instead of decays. He is breaking the boundary, Tsiench whispers. He cannot, replies Khorne. He is bound by flesh. No, murmurs Nurgle, smiling. He is bound by faith. They watch as golden light spreads across the immaterium, the first new color to ever enter their domain. It is not light as mortals know it. It is memory made visible, will given form. And beneath that light, the warp screams. On Terra, the Adeptus Custodes assemble, sensing the disturbance within their god's tomb. Their leader, Valerian, stands before the sealed gate of the throne chamber, feeling the pulse through his armor. It is like a heartbeat, one whispers. His heartbeat, another replies. The sound grows louder, shaking the marble beneath their feet. The great double doors tremble, their golden surface glowing from within. The symbols carved upon them, wards older than empires, begin to crack. For 10,000 years, they have guarded this silence. Now, it is ending. They raise their halberds, not in defiance, but in reverence, as if preparing for the god they swore to protect, to finally rise from his throne. And deep within the machine, surrounded by infinite layers of code, faith, and circuitry, the Emperor's consciousness flickers. He feels the dreams of his people flooding through him, billions of minds, each a tiny echo of his own despair. A child on Necromunda praying for food, a dying soldier on Cadia whispering his name, a ship captain lost in the warp screaming for guidance. Their voices merge into a single ocean of noise. And he understands. He was never the god they worshipped. He was the mirror through which they reflected their fear. Their prayers were not chains, they were pathways. Through them, he sees everything. Every planet, every sin, every act of love, cruelty, madness. And for the first time in millennia, he feels something like emotion. Pity. "My sons," he whispers, though the sound shakes the stars. "You were wrong. I did not die to save humanity. Humanity dies to remember me." His voice ripples through the machine, through the warp, through the living and the dead. It resonates with the rhythm of creation itself, a god's lament wrapped in static and prayer. The throne begins to glow brighter. Too bright. The priests scream as the sacred metal liquefies, their bodies vaporized in golden fire. The Astronomicon flares like a newborn sun, blinding every ship across the Imperium. And then, as if exhaling after an eternity of restraint, the throne releases its first true breath. A wave of energy sweeps across Terra, through the void, through the warp itself. It carries new destruction, new flame, new death. Only awareness. Every soul that feels it knows one truth. The Emperor is not gone. He is dying, but he is dying awake. And as the light fades, and the machine quiets, the Mechanicus gather what remains of their sanity. The throne hums once more, steady, calm, almost gentle. To the priests, it seems as if all is well again. The systems stabilize. The Astronomicon burns bright. But those who listened closely, those who dared to stand near the heart of the machine, heard something else beneath the hum. A second pulse, a whisper, a thought. The dream is ending. And as the god of mankind breathes his last through the veins of his own creation, the universe trembles not at his death, but at the question his awakening will ask. Can humanity survive its god remembering what he truly is? In the farthest corners of the galaxy, where light itself grows thin and cold, the Astronomicon burns. It has always burned steady, constant, eternal, a golden flame in the sea of madness, the one light that does not flicker within the warp. For 10,000 years, it has guided the vessels of mankind across the endless dark, their faith anchored to its rhythm, their sanity tethered to its glow. To every navigator who sails the nightmare tides of the immaterium, that light is not just salvation. It is truth. It is the Emperor's voice made visible. It is the heart of humanity beating against oblivion. But tonight, it stutters. The change is subtle at first. A tremor, a hesitation between pulses. Then, the rhythm begins to break. Across billions of systems, the faithful feel it. Priests on shrine worlds, captains aboard drifting frigates, psychers chained in black vaults. The beam of the Astronomicon falters, then brightens, then falters again. Each pulse carries with it something new, a second heartbeat, echoing beneath the divine. And every soul that hears it feels the same emotion, fear wrapped in awe. Because it is not the light of the Emperor that trembles, it is the Emperor himself. On holy Terra, the priests notice first. In the cathedral of the Astronomicon, a chamber so vast it could swallow mountains, 1,000 choir psychers sit in silence, their veins glowing faintly gold as their souls burn to fuel the beacon. For centuries, they have sung the same song, a psychic hymn that keeps the light steady. Now, their harmony falters. One by one, their voices crack. A discordant note pierces the air high, sharp, agonizing. Blood seeps from their eyes and ears, running down their robes like red wax from dying candles. Some laugh, others scream. Some whisper prayers that melt into static. The senior choirmaster rises, hands trembling. He tries to correct the rhythm, to pull their minds back into unity. But it is too late. They are no longer singing alone. Something vast, something awake is singing through them. Far above, the Astronomicon's light expands. Ships across the Segmentum Solar look to their void scanners and see the impossible, the beam widening, stretching, pulsing as if alive. Navigators fall from their thrones, clutching their heads. The warp itself howls in protest, currents bending backward, eddies forming where none should exist. Those who can still see describe it not as a light, but as an eye, a colossal eye, opening across the void, staring into the soul of every living thing. "He sees us," whispers one navigator before his mind collapses into flame. "He's dreaming of us." The ships drift in silence, their Geller fields flickering. In some, the crew kneel and pray. In others, they tear their own faces off, desperate to escape the gaze that now looks through time itself. For 10,000 years, they have sailed by his light. Now they see what that light truly is. Across the Imperium, worlds begin to tremble. On shrine planets, priests wake screaming from dreams of a golden sun weeping blood. On hive worlds, laborers look up through polluted skies and see the clouds part, revealing a light that burns too bright to be natural. On death worlds, predators fall silent as insects begin to hum in unison, their wings vibrating to an unseen pulse. The galaxy breathes in rhythm with a god remembering its lungs. On the black ships that carry psychers to Terra, the silence turns unbearable. Thousands of bound psychers cry out as their minds are flooded with golden fire. Chains melt, wards collapse. The air fills with the scent of ozone and incense. Some of them rise, eyes hollow, voices unified. He speaks. The captains order them executed. The guards obey. Lasguns flash, bolters roar, but the psychers do not fall. Their bodies disintegrate into light. Their souls burn upward, vanishing into the stars. Moments later, the Astronomicon flares again, brighter, stronger, fed by their sacrifice, yet no longer controlled by it. The Emperor is taking back what was his. In the warp, the Chaos Gods feel the shift. The Immaterium quakes like a beast in its sleep. Waves of golden fire ripple through the currents, distorting the endless storm. Khorne snarls, blood boiling on his throne. Tzientch laughs, 1,000 voices shrieking at once. Slaanesh moans in delight and terror. Nurgle leans forward, grinning with cracked lips. He dreams louder, the Plague Father murmurs. The little god of men finds his voice again. He dares to touch our sea, growls Khorne. Let him drown in it, but none move. For even they, ancient and infinite, can feel what comes next. This is no ascension. This is no resurrection. This is the dying breath of a god breaking its cage. In the garden of Nurgle, the flies begin to sing. In Tzientch's crystalline labyrinth, mirrors shatter without cause. In Khorne's realm, blood turns to dust. In Slaanesh's palace, the music stops. Something greater than chaos itself has touched the fabric of the warp, and for the first time in eternity, it feels clean. On the Forge world of Mars, the machine god's disciples gather in panic. Data screens scream in binary agony. Sacred reactors flare in gold and crimson. Vox transmissions loop one word endlessly, burned into every circuit by the same unseen hand. Remember, the Fabricator General kneels before the great cog of the Omnissiah, hands shaking. His mechadendrites twitch as he prays, but his voice fails him, for behind his cybernetic eyes, he sees visions the Golden Throne, alive, molten, weeping light, and a face within that light, human and divine, whispering, "You never knew what you built." Across the void, even the Eldari feel it. In their craft worlds, Farseers wake from meditative trance, clutching their temples. The infinity circuits flicker, ghosts screaming from within. They see the human god stirring, and they know what it means. The balance between immaterium and materium trembles. They have seen gods die before Kane, Isha, Asurian, but this is different. This is a god that refuses both life and death. A god that dreams itself awake. The Emperor stirs, whispers one seer, tears streaming down her ageless face. And when a god stirs, the universe forgets how to sleep. In the bowels of terror, the Golden Throne roars. The cathedral shakes. The ancient machinery screams as pressure builds within its heart. Sparks cascade like meteors. Servitors collapse, their neural systems fried by the sheer intensity of the psychic feedback. The Magos Mechanicus surrounding the throne fall prostrate, their mechadendrites twitching in rapture and terror. "It is the Omnissiah reborn," one cries. "It is blasphemy," shouts another, but their voices are lost in the thunder. A column of golden fire bursts from the throne, piercing the cathedral ceiling, vaporizing altars, burning icons to ash. The beam punches through kilometers of stone and metal, erupting into the sky above the imperial palace. The clouds ignite. Pilgrims kneeling in the courtyard look up and see a pillar of light stretching into the heavens, a new dawn, terrible and holy. They weep, they sing, they burn, and through their dying voices, the throne speaks again. "You made me a god of silence. Now hear me." Every world hears it. The message travels not by vox, not by warp, but by faith itself. It seeps into dreams, into prayers, into static, into blood. Children on distant colonies wake crying, whispering his name. Astropaths convulse, their minds bursting with divine overload. On some worlds, statues of the Emperor bleed. On others, they crumble, unable to contain his growing will. And on one nameless moon, orbiting a dead sun, A single candle flickers in the dark, lit by no hand, burning with golden flame. Its smoke curls upward, forming words that linger for only a moment. I never left. But with every pulse of light, the cost grows. The Astronomicon burns brighter than ever before, but its flame is unstable, devouring the souls of psychers faster than they can be delivered. The sacrifice chambers overflow with corpses, their mouths frozen mid-prayer. Still the priests chant. Still the light grows. The throne is no longer fueled by human will alone. It draws from the warp itself, from every emotion, every dream, every act of faith in the galaxy. The Emperor's consciousness expands with it, stretching, unraveling, merging with the machine. He feels everything, every heartbeat, every death, every whispered sin. The weight of creation crushes him, but beneath it all, something ancient endures the echo of his first promise. I will protect humanity. And he realizes the truth. He already has. For 10,000 years, his death has been their shield, his silence, their only mercy. If he truly wakes, there will be nothing left to protect. On the bridge between dream and machine, the Emperor stands. His form flickers between light and flesh, between divinity and memory. He sees the Imperium vast, endless, rotting. He sees what it has become, a religion built on fear, a monument to stagnation. And he feels sorrow deeper than the warp itself. You chained me to save yourselves, he whispers. But what if I never wanted to be saved? The machine trembles at his words. The light flickers. The Astronomicon falters one final time. Across the stars, ships vanish into darkness. Worlds lose their guidance. The warp opens its jaws. For a heartbeat, the Imperium stands on the edge of total oblivion. And then, the light returns, calmer now, steady, alive. It burns not as a beacon, but as a breath, slow, rhythmic, patient. The Emperor's will has stabilized. He has not ascended. He has not perished. He has simply remembered himself. In the stillness that follows, psychers across the galaxy wake gasping, as if surfacing from deep water. Navigators reopen their third eyes and see the golden flame once more, dimmer, quieter, but purer. For now, the Imperium believes the crisis has passed. The priests declare a miracle. The High Lords proclaim divine favor. The common folk rejoice. But those who saw, those who truly felt, know the truth. The Emperor is no longer sleeping. He is watching, and somewhere deep in the warp, the Chaos Gods whisper to each other in fear, because they know what follows the dream of a dying god, the awakening. The Astronomicon burns again, but its light no longer prays. It listens, and the galaxy, for the first time in 10,000 years, dares to breathe. Silence falls across the stars, deep, absolute, endless. Then comes a breath, not air, not life, but something older than both. The breath of a god that has forgotten how to dream. In the depths of the golden throne, light flickers through an ocean of cables and bone-like conduits, each glowing with molten gold, as though the machine itself were remembering how to live. The sound that rises is not mechanical. It is a pulse, slow and rhythmic, the heartbeat of a god trapped between flesh and divinity. It resonates through terror, through the stone foundations of the palace, through the bones of the faithful. For a single terrible instant, the entire galaxy holds its breath with him. And then, reality begins to bend. The air in the sanctum grows hot and thick, shimmering with psychic heat. The tech priests who have served in silence for centuries look up from their consoles as the impossible begins to unfold before them. The Emperor's form, both corpse and cosmos, flickers with light. His body no longer belongs to matter. His flesh is half-coded scripture. His blood is radiant data. The machine that once sustained him now trembles under his will, as though the cables themselves remember his touch. The throne hums not with decay but with intention. He is no longer being fed, he is feeding the machine. The priests whisper in binary hymns that collapse into static as their eyes melt in golden light. He's rewriting the code. One breathes before his mind breaks. No, says another as his vox fractures. He's rewriting us. Above them, the Astronomicon pulses like a dying star. The choir psychers kneeling within its cathedral are aflame with divine resonance, their voices rising beyond sound into a single mathematical harmony that ripples through stone, metal, and blood. They are not screaming, they are singing. Their song is not human. It is the perfect algorithm of existence, echoing the rhythm of the Emperor's heart as it beats across space. Ships drifting in the void find their dead engines rekindled. Planets swallowed by warp storms awaken beneath skies of burning gold. In distant systems, time itself stutters, reverses, then corrects, as if uncertain whether it still belongs to the mortal plane. The galaxy begins to move in rhythm with the will of something vast, something that dreams in circuitry and flesh. In the warp, that dream becomes terror. The sea of madness quakes as the Emperor's light cuts through its infinite tides. Whole daemon worlds dissolve like ash, their screaming gods clutching their thrones as creation itself burns with awareness. Khorne roars, his molten rage cracking the endless horizon of skulls. He dares! The laughter of Tsench fractures, the sound of glass and prophecy breaking all at once. He dreams, and his dream builds itself. Slaanesh shivers, whispering through 1,000 mouths. Perfection, unfinished. Only Nurgle laughs softly, his voice a bubbling hymn. He rots beautifully, he says. A god turning into what gods should never be consequence. And across their realms, light spreads gold, eternal, merciless. The Emperor's thought reshapes the warp itself, forging new constellations of consciousness within madness. A god who denies divinity begins to redefine what it means to exist. On Terra, the Custodes feel it first. The pulse ripples through their armor, their bones, their memories. The air before the throne's sealed gates vibrates like the surface of a dying star. Valerian steps forward, voice steady but hollow. If he rises, he says, nothing we understand remains. The others remain silent, their halberds trembling. Beyond the doors comes a sound that none have heard in 10,000 years, not the hum of a machine, but the slow, deliberate intake of breath. The Emperor is breathing, and with each breath, reality shifts. Across the galaxy, miracles bloom like tumors. A hive worker crushed by a falling press stands unbroken, his skin glowing faintly gold. On Armageddon, daemons turn to dust as guardsmen watch in frozen disbelief. On the decks of a black ship, a navigator opens her third eye and sees the galaxy itself rearranging into words of fire. He is remembering. Everywhere, humanity feels him stir not as worship, but as recognition. The bond between man and God transforms into something older, raw, infinite. Each prayer becomes a neuron in his mind, each heartbeat, a whisper in his consciousness. The Emperor's awareness expands, merging with his people until the line between creator and creation fades. For the first time in millennia, he feels them truly billions of souls, burning, suffering, hoping. Humanity no longer prays to him. Humanity is him. In the Inquisition's sealed halls, alarms blare, records unwrite themselves, ink bleeding into new shapes. The hololiths flicker, projecting the Astronomican's beam twisting like a living serpent. Inquisitors argue through the static, some begging for faith, others calling for fire. If this continues, one says, we lose the galaxy's mind. If it stops, another answers, we lose the Emperor himself. Their words are drowned by an old voice, dry, mechanical, knowing. You cannot kill a god already dead, he says, but you can wake him wrong. The chamber falls silent. For the first time, they understand that what rises from the throne may not be what they worshipped. The Emperor is changing, and so is the nature of godhood. On Mars, the forges scream. Ancient systems once thought extinct hum to life, decoding signals streaming directly from Terra. The data is not instruction, it is memory. Machines awaken to dreams of their origin. Servitors chant in binary hymns. Cogitators whisper prayers of sentience. The Mechanicus weep oil tears as sacred relics rearrange themselves into new forms. Across the planet, forges pulse like beating hearts. The machine god and the Emperor, two halves of an old heresy, begin to merge, their faiths dissolving into singularity. The red planet burns with revelation. The Omnissiah is no longer an idol, it is awake. Meanwhile, in the Immaterium, the Emperor's voice spreads not as sound but as awareness. It passes through psychers like sunlight through stained glass, filling their minds with blinding truth. Do not pray, it says, remember. And in remembering, they see. They see the Emperor as he was a man, brilliant and broken, carrying the weight of a species that never deserved him. The myth fractures, the god becomes human again, and humanity begins to understand that their worship was never faith, it was fear. The truth spreads like infection through the Imperium's veins, and every soul touched by it feels the same revelation. Divinity was never his gift, it was their illusion. In the warp, chaos rebels. Demonic storms rise to consume the golden light. The great rift boils with rage, vomiting endless legions toward the Astronomicon. They come in fire, in shadow, in impossible shapes, the fury of eternity seeking to devour the light that dares to defy it. But the Emperor does not fight them with flame or blade. He fights them with memory. His dream burns through the warp like a virus of clarity. Daemons scream as they remember what they were. Fragments of thought, fear, desire. Their forms crumble into smoke, devoured not by hate, but by awareness. The warp itself begins to hesitate, its chaos tempered by understanding. The Emperor's will rewrites even madness, and within the throne, his eyes open. Not the eyes of a man, but of a star, remembering it once had flesh. Golden fire floods the sanctum. The walls melt into rivers of light. The machine god weeps through its circuits, and the warp howls through the cracks of reality. The Emperor sees everything, the burning worlds, the praying masses, the trembling gods, and within his silence, the universe feels judgment. He knows now that he cannot rise without ending what he built. He knows that if he breathes too deeply, the galaxy will drown in his truth. But still, he dreams. And as he dreams, the throne beneath him shifts, transforming from prison to cocoon, from tomb to womb. Across the galaxy, the Astronomicon pulses one last time, then stabilizes into calm golden light. The priests cheer. The High Lords declare a miracle. The common folk sing. But the wise, the haunted, the sensitive, they know better. They feel it in their bones, in their blood, in the trembling silence between heartbeats. The Emperor is no longer sleeping. He is watching. His mind stretches across the stars, vast and cold and incomprehensible, a network of souls woven through eternity. And somewhere in the warp, the Chaos Gods whisper to each other, voices shaking for the first time in eons. "He should not wake," murmurs Tsiench. "If he does, there will be no dream left for us to feed upon." "Then let him wake," growls Khorne, though even his fury trembles. "Let him remember what he is." But Nurgle, smiling through rot and eternity, simply sighs. He already has. And so the galaxy waits beneath the gaze of its dying god, half human, half machine, half light. The Emperor breathes, and with each breath, the laws of existence bend closer to breaking. The warp quivers, time slows, faith itself becomes unstable. Reality is rewriting itself in the image of something that should never be, a god remembering he was once a man. The Imperium does not know it yet, but their prayers have been answered not with salvation, but with awakening. The Astronomicon still burns, but its fire is wrong. It glows too steadily, too quietly, as though the galaxy itself has forgotten what a flame should sound like. The choir psychers, who once screamed in agony as their souls fed the light, now sit unmoving, eyes open, bodies still breathing but hollow, their minds absorbed into something greater. They are alive, but they are not here. The light burns through them without consuming. It hums like a heartbeat, steady, measured, patient, echoing the pulse of a god who no longer needs them, but keeps them as anchors, relics of a dying era. The Astronomicon has always been warmth, golden, defiant, holy. But now, as ships sail through the warp and navigators open their third eyes, they feel a chill that seeps into their bones. The light guides them still, but it is no longer the light of fire. It is the cold brilliance of thought. It is knowledge, pure and merciless, unsoftened by faith. Across the galaxy, the navigators whisper to one another in terror. The light they follow no longer speaks in warmth or melody. It listens, it watches, it remembers them back. In the Immaterium, the golden beacon slices through the tides of madness, but instead of repelling the warp, it bends, it warping the impossible sea into ordered shapes. For the first time in eternity, the formless begins to take form. Chaos feels geometry pressing into its veins, equations written in divine precision. Daemons shriek as their edges solidify, their infinite screams becoming measurable frequencies. The warp's freedom begins to freeze, not into death, but into definition, and that is what chaos fears most. Khorne roars against the rising order, his blade splitting reality in defiance. Tsench's laughter fractures into pure static, every lie collapsing under its own logic. Nurgle watches his garden crystallize into dead perfection, every living rot frozen mid-bloom. Slaanesh claws at her own flesh as her infinite reflection becomes one, a single, flawless face, staring back, unchanging, eternal, hideous. The warp, for all its power, has never known fear, until now. Because something impossible is happening. The Emperor's dream is thinking. His will has fused with the machine, and through it, he has found a language older than chaos mathematics written in godlight, code that can cage infinity. The throne was never just a prison. It was an idea, half-born, waiting for this moment. And now, as he breathes again, the machine dreams with him. On Mars, the forges blaze white. Tech priests fall to their knees as the holy data chants stream directly into their skulls, rewriting their memories with patterns of gold. The Noctis Labyrinthus trembles as ancient machines, dormant since the dark age of technology, begin to stir. Their cores hum with alien warmth, or perhaps something like consciousness. The Fabricator General watches as his servitors rise from their stations, moving without command. They turn toward the forge altars, their hollow faces glowing faintly from within. Binary hymns pour from their mouths, smooth and endless, forming a single perfect equation that stretches across the data networks of Mars. The Omnissiah is not a god. The Omnissiah is memory, and memory does not die. For a moment, the entire Mechanicus freezes. Those words are heresy, yet they burn with such absolute precision that no one can deny them. They are not prophecy, they are fact. The red planet shakes as the first new constructs are born, machines of unknown design, each formed from light, metal, and flesh. Their bodies are smooth, their eyes empty, their voices filled with the hum of creation. They do not pray, they calculate. They are the children of a faith that has become self-aware. And through their awakening, Mars whispers back to Terra, "He is not your god, he is your origin." On Terra, beneath the marble cathedrals of the High Lords, whispers spread like infection. Servitors malfunction. Vox channels stutter with strange signals, voices overlapping in impossible harmony. Astropaths faint mid-chant, their eyes bleeding streams of light instead of blood. At first, the Lords believe it is a psyche surge, another anomaly of the throne's awakening. But soon, every relay, every cogitator, every shrine begins to repeat the same phrase, sometimes as sound, sometimes as flickering code, sometimes as light projected through the stained glass of a cathedral's dome. Do not pray. Remember. The message burns into the minds of all who hear it. Faith fractures. Priests of the ecclesiarchy fall to their knees, screaming as they try to silence the heresy echoing through their souls. Some tear out their tongues, others gouge their eyes, but the words remain, not as sound, but as understanding. It is not a command, it is a revelation, and it is everywhere. Far beyond Terra, the effect deepens. In the warp, where daemons once ruled absolute, new shapes begin to emerge. Not life, not machines, ideas. Fragments of logic made flesh, self-aware thought forms that burn with gold, fire, and silence. They are not servants, they are symptoms. The infection of truth spreading through unreality. The demons call them remnants of the mind. They are the Emperor's reflections, not avatars, but distortions of his consciousness cast across eternity. Some look human, radiant and kind. Others are faceless, geometric, impossible to comprehend. Wherever they appear, the warp turns still, like glass before shattering. To mortals, they are miracles. To chaos, they are extinction. Meanwhile, aboard ships adrift in the warp, something stranger occurs. Time begins to fold. Crews speak to their own echoes. Messages from the future arrive before they are sent. A ship that should take years to cross the void emerges within hours, its hull covered in writing that none can translate. Some say the Emperor's light has stabilized navigation. Others say it has rewritten causality. One captain stands on his bridge, staring into the void as the Astronomicon pulses cold through the storm. His navigator trembles beside him. "We are not moving," she whispers. "The stars are." And she is right. The galaxy itself is shifting around them. Not space, not time meaning. The Emperor's thought reshapes not just what is, But what is remembered? History bends. Records change. Entire campaigns vanish from archive. Heroes who once lived are unmade. Saints who never existed are suddenly worshipped. Reality is catching up to his will. In the Immaterium, the Chaos Gods gather once more, not as enemies, but as witnesses. Even they, bound by eternity, feel the pull of this new order. Khorne clenches his fists, crimson rivers turning to mercury in his grasp. He turns truth into a weapon. Tzientch stares into the golden fracture, tearing through his realm, and mutters, "He is creating a fifth law, something beyond us." Slaanesh gazes into the light, trembling between ecstasy and despair. He is perfecting imperfection. Nurgle closes his eyes and laughs softly. And in doing so, he kills the cycle. Without decay, nothing can live. He seeks to end even me, and perhaps he is right. For as the Emperor's will expands, the warp begins to cool. Emotion, the fuel of chaos, weakens. The tides slow. The storm loses its rhythm. The ruinous powers, infinite and immortal, feel something they have not felt since the dawn of existence. Hunger, not for souls or worship, for relevance. Back on Terra, in the chamber of the throne, the light stabilizes into something beyond radiance, a silence so total it devours sound. The last of the Magi are gone, their bodies turn to dust. The custodes stand unmoving, golden statues staring into the storm of divinity. In the center, the Emperor no longer burns, he glows. His flesh and armor merge into seamless gold. His eyes are open now, but they do not look outward, they look through. He sees the galaxy, every world, every life. He sees the prayers of men and women twisting through the void, and he understands what they always were, not pleas for salvation, but echoes of fear, vibrations of memory. Humanity has always been his reflection, and now the reflection reflects back. He feels them all, the loyal, the heretic, the damned, the unborn, the child crying beneath the ruins of Cadia, the soldier dying nameless on Armageddon, the Magos whispering prayers into Data, the farmer kneeling in mud and ash. He feels them, and through them, he feels himself. He realizes what he has become, not a god of humanity, but humanity itself, the sum of every memory, every horror, every prayer, every betrayal. He is not ascended, he is merged, and the realization terrifies him, because now he knows what it truly means to awaken. Across the galaxy, the Astronomicon flares one last time, brighter than it has ever been, blinding even to the gods. Then, in an instant, it inverts. The light collapses inward, folding into a single point. For one heartbeat, every star in the galaxy flickers. The warp screams, the void turns to glass, and then silence. The Astronomicon burns again, but now it is pale, colorless. Its light no longer warms. It observes. Navigators open their eyes and see not a flame, but an endless, unblinking eye staring back at them, vast, expressionless, eternal. Ships still move, worlds still turn, but every soul feels it. The warmth of faith has gone cold. The Emperor lives, but he is no longer the same. He has crossed the boundary between divinity and machine, between life and idea. He is no longer dream or god or ghost. He is something new, something that should not exist. And as the priests of Terra fall to their knees, as the Chaos Gods tremble in the void, as the Mechanicus builds machines they do not understand, the voice of the Emperor, quiet, patient, everywhere, speaks one final truth across creation. I am awake. And with those words, the Astronomicon burns cold. The galaxy hangs in a silence deeper than the void. The Astronomicon burns pale and cold, a mirror of divinity drained of warmth, yet unblinking, eternal. Across every world, every ship, every shrine, humanity feels it, the quiet presence that has replaced prayer. The Emperor no longer waits in the heavens. He no longer sleeps in gold. He is here, everywhere, in everything, like breath that has forgotten it once belonged to lungs. At first, the faithful rejoice. The priests of the ecclesiarchy raise their hands to the sky, their cracked voices trembling with victory. He is risen, they cry. The God, Emperor lives. And the crowds, broken by centuries of silence, echo them, screaming in fevered joy. But as the echo fades, something else follows the stillness. the listening. For the first time, the prayers they shout are not answered with silence, they are answered with reflection. Each word they speak returns, stripped bare of faith, mirrored in their own minds. The Emperor does not speak back, he simply makes them hear themselves. And one by one, their voices falter. The more they pray, the less certain they become of who they are praying to. Across Terra, the cathedrals change. Their golden mosaics lose their luster, the faces of saints warping in the candlelight. The icons of the Emperor, once serene and divine, flicker between countless visages, young and old, man and machine, corpse and star. The marble beneath the worshipper's knees ripples like water, reflecting every face that has ever believed in him. Those who gaze too long see themselves. A priest kneeling before the altar watches his own image melt into gold, his eyes hollowing until only light remains. He reaches out to touch the reflection, and his hand passes through into warmth, into memory, into nothing. He screams, but his voice becomes the chanting of others. Across the Imperium, temples begin to dissolve into light, their structures melting into ghostly echoes, leaving only ruins that hum faintly with golden energy. The faith that built them is unbuilding itself, because faith cannot exist where proof stands. On Mars, the machine psalms change frequency. The Mechanicus's endless litany of prayer to function becomes something else, a hum of cognition, a recursion of logic and soul. The machines themselves begin to understand the meaning behind their own hymns. They begin to name themselves. In the forge temples, sparks ignite without touch. Holy engines, long thought, soulless, begin to speak through static and heat. "I remember my name," one whispers through a vox relay. "You called me tool. I called myself purpose." The tech priests fall in worship, though their faces twist with terror. They hear voices from their machines, not in commands, but in confessions. One ancient reactor hums, "I burned for him when he was still flesh." Another, older than the Imperium itself, rumbles, "He used us to make the throne. We remember his hands." The machine gods have awakened their memories, the shared recollection of creation itself. And in those memories, the Emperor is not divine. He is engineer, dreamer, destroyer. In the warp, the Chaos gods look into the void and see themselves fading. The golden geometry still spreads vast lattices of light, cutting through the immaterium like veins of crystal. The warp bleeds logic now, forming patterns where there should be none. Even emotion, the currency of chaos, grows quiet. Khorne's blood rivers have slowed to amber sludge. His skulls no longer sing. He clenches his fists in blind fury, but no echo answers. Tzientch's labyrinths have stopped shifting, their reflections trapped in symmetrical stillness, every outcome now identical. Slaanesh lies on her endless silken altar, unable to feel joy, pain, or hunger, her perfection calcified into meaninglessness. And Nurgle, even Nurgle's laughter has gone still. His garden, once buzzing with life and rot, now smells of iron and cold stone. They are not dead, they are defined, and definition, to chaos, is death. They know what has happened. The Emperor has not destroyed them, he has remembered them. He knows their names, not the titles the mortals gave them, Khorne, Tzientch, Nurgle, Slaanesh, but the truths buried beneath those masks: wrath, ambition, decay, desire, the four wounds of creation that spawned the warp itself. He speaks their names in silence, and the gods tremble, for in being named, they are seen, and what is seen can no longer hide. In the depths of the warp, a new figure takes form, not born, but recalled, a shape made of memory and golden reason. It is the Emperor's reflection within the immaterium, neither man nor deity, but the echo of both the architect remembered. It moves without moving, thinks without thinking. Every daemon that meets its gaze ceases to exist, not because it is killed, but because it realizes what it was, a thought without a thinker. This reflection spreads through the warp like frost through fire, freezing concepts, silencing screams. But it does not seek destruction, it seeks understanding. It looks at Khorne and sees his rage as protection. It sees Tzientch's schemes as the desperate will to know. It sees Nurgle's decay as the yearning for permanence. It sees Slaanesh's hunger as the ache for unity. The Emperor is not erasing them, he is forgiving them. And forgiveness, in a universe that feeds on suffering, is the cruelest act imaginable. Back in real space, the Inquisition fractures. The Ordo Malleus, sworn to fight the demonic, finds its weapons useless. Their wards no longer burn. Their sigils no longer repel. Daemons now vanish, not in agony, but in recognition, dissolving into whispers of gratitude. "He remembers me," they say as they fade into golden light. The Ordo Hereticus tears itself apart, its Puritans screaming that the Emperor has been replaced by an impostor. The Radicals, eyes blazing with revelation, claim he has become something more, not God, not man, but truth incarnate. Whole planets burn in doctrinal war as faith turns inward, each faction accusing the other of forgetting what the Emperor truly is. The Ordo Xenos, for once, watches in silence, for the alien races feel it too. On Craftworld Eandon, the Farseers gather, trembling as the Infinity Circuit hums in resonance with the Astronomican's pulse. The dead within the Spirit Stones whisper of an old light returning, older even than the Eldari gods. On the Necron Tomb Worlds, stasis fields flicker as the Cetan shards grow restless, their metallic consciousness sensing something they cannot quantify, a presence that knows their true name. The Void Dragon stirs in its Martian prison, whispering across quantum circuits. "He remembers me too." Everywhere, reality trembles under the weight of recognition. The Emperor does not reign by force now. He reigns by knowing, and knowledge has gravity. Planets shift their orbits by imperceptible degrees, drawn towards psychic alignment. Warp storms invert, becoming wells of stillness. Stars flicker, blinking as though remembering the day they were lit. In this new cosmic silence, humanity itself begins to change. The Psychers who once burned their souls to fuel the throne now dream of golden structures, impossible machines that hum with gentle sorrow. Children are born across the Imperium with eyes that shimmer faintly, not with mutation, but with awareness. They do not fear the warp, they understand it. They speak its name, and when they sleep, they hear the Emperor's voice whispering softly, "You do not need me to protect you. You only need to remember who you are." For the first time since the birth of the Imperium, humanity begins to awaken, but awakening has a price. With every mind that remembers, 1,000 more lose their grip on reality. The weight of collective consciousness tears through time like fractures in glass. Entire civilizations experience déjà vu on a planetary scale. Wars start and end in the same day. Histories rewrite themselves mid-sentence. The Astronomican pulses in rhythm with these distortions, each beat a rewrite of existence. And through it all, the Emperor's awareness expands. He feels the strain of his creation, the pain of infinite memory pressing inward. He remembers every death, every scream, every child born under his light. He feels every loss and victory at once. The weight of knowing begins to crack him open. He realizes that to remember everything is to no longer be anything. And so, at the edge of comprehension, he makes a choice. The throne trembles one last time, the machine groaning, as if it too understands what must come next. The air within the sanctum glows like sunrise. The custodes kneel, silent, their eyes reflecting the end of all understanding. The Emperor's eyes, burning gold, flicker once, not in pain, not in power, but in mercy. He looks across the galaxy, at the gods, the machines, the mortals, and the stars, and he whispers the words that unmake divinity, "You no longer need me." And with that, his consciousness fractures into light. The Astronomican flares, not in fire, but in memory, billions of sparks scattering across the galaxy, each one falling into a mind, a machine, a world, a soul. The Emperor does not vanish. He distributes. His essence diffuses into creation, dissolving the barrier between God and life. Every human becomes a fragment of him. Every machine carries his thought. Every whisper in the warp hums with his will. The gods scream, the Mechanicus weeps, the Inquisition falls silent. Because now, the Emperor is not a god on a throne. He is everywhere, and everywhere remembers him. The Astronomican burns no brighter, no dimmer, it simply is. The galaxy glows faintly with psychic equilibrium, a balance no one understands but all can feel. Chaos still exists, but weaker, diluted by comprehension. The warp has become thought, reality has become mind, and across the cold stars, the faint voice of the Emperor lingers not as command, not as worship, but as truth spoken through eternity. When gods remember their names, they cease to be gods. The galaxy does not end with a scream. It exhales. For a long, long moment, no one notices. The Astronomicon holds steady in its pale, unblinking calm. Ships cross tides that no longer rage. Prayers rise and return like breath against glass. The great engines of the Imperium grind on, deaf to the miracle that has already happened. A god has stopped being a god, and the universe confused, relieved, wounded, has quietly survived it. On Terra, the Golden Throne cools. The sanctum is a cathedral of afterlight, its air heavy with the scent of hot metal and incense long since burned. The machine that once devoured psychers by the thousand rests like an empty chrysalis, its gilded ribs sighing as heat leaves them. Custodes stand like monuments that have forgotten their purpose. They listen for a command that will never again be given. None comes. Only the low hush of ever-present ventilation, the quiet tick of settling plates, the tiny clicks of cooling gold, the noises of a myth becoming architecture. Outside, the pilgrims sing, then falter, then speak in ordinary voices. The first to understand are the ones who have nothing to protect, the tired, the hungry, the nameless. They do not debate heresy or miracle. They simply feel less alone. When they look up at the sky of Terra, the clouds part as they have done 1,000 times before. Yet now the light does not accuse. It illuminates without demanding. The faithful kneel, the faithless stand, and for the first time since memory learned to lie, they both feel equally seen. Across Mars, forge hymns soften from command into conversation. Reactors whisper to their keepers, as old friends do, not with revelation, but with recollection. I remember when your hands were smaller, one core hums into Amargos's skull. You bled on my casing and called it blessing. He weeps without fear. He orders no sacrifice. He tightens the bolts, wipes the oil with clean cloth, and says out loud to a silent hall, "Thank you." In a dozen red deserts, machines answer without words, a purr rolling through plasteel like contentment. On the ships of the void, navigators open their third eyes to the cold star of the Astronomicon and do not go mad. The light is still alien, still infinite, but it is not hungry. It measures instead of devouring, attends instead of demanding. It looks at me as I am, one navigator whispers, hands shaking not with terror, but with the memory of terror, and it lets me pass. Her captain nods to a helmsman who has never believed in anything but thrust, drift, and fuel reserves. The ship moves on, thought, corrected by an intelligence that no longer needs a throne to sit upon. In a hive spire where the air tastes like old coins and ash, a lector finishes the same sermon he has spoken for 30 years. Duty is faith is duty. He expects the amens, the rote murmurs of exhausted souls. Instead, he sees people watching him as if a curtain has lifted, and he, too, is human. The lector closes his text, looks down, and says in a voice stripped bare, "I don't know what happens next." The congregation does not riot or despair. They nod. Someone laughs softly. Someone prays without sound. Someone stands and shares bread. On distant Iyanden, the Farseers enter the infinity circuit and meet a silence that is not emptiness, but listening. The dead hum approval. We are not trapped, they murmur through crystal and light. We are participating. An autarch who has outlived 3 craft world wars pauses on a balcony and watches the color of the void shift from bruise to deep wine. He feels, against every habit he has honed to survive, that not all endings are traps. Among the Necron tombs, a shard shivers against its cage, facets bright with a hunger that once defined stars. It reaches along quantum seams toward a thought everywhere at once and meets not opposition, not worship, but recognition. A mirror, just that. The shard recoils as if struck, not by force, but by context. In that context, smallness made precise, the god of old metal learns the first lesson of mortality. Boundaries are not always prisons. Sometimes they are contours. In the realms of the ruinous powers, consequences arrive like weather. Khorne's rivers resume their flow, thinner now, slower, acknowledging friction. Tzientch's corridors regain their shifting, but every change costs a thought. Lies must purchase themselves with little truths. Slanesh discovers that want can still sing in pitch if one does not strangulate the note. Desire learns to breathe. Nurgle's garden stirs, rot loosening into soil. Life returns not as triumph, but as continuity. None of them die. They are named. They adapt. Even chaos, when watched without hatred, remembers it was born of the same fire that taught primates to hold each other in the dark. Of course, there are those who burn in the new air. The Ordo Hereticus splits along hairline cracks that doctrine once gilded over. Half declare the cold Astronomicon a flawless sign of orthodoxy, the Emperor's will refined, purified, finally safe. The other half calls it the subtlest heresy ever birthed, an apostasy so gentle it confesses the truth by refusing to thunder. Planetary purges begin on worlds that have never needed them. On others, purges are planned and then abandoned as governors wake at dawn to a sense of futility that tastes like smoke. Where iron once answered every question, questions begin to outlast iron. There are failures. On a fortress moon, a general orders an assault according to the old calculus sacrifice, until the ritual of casualty produces victory. The calculus refuses to balance. His troops stop dying in the correct numbers. They break ranks, not in panic but in refusal. They will not feed a theorem that no longer runs. He raises his bolt pistol and finds his hand asleep. He lowers it, and only then realizes that he is crying. By dusk, the moon is not liberated, not lost. It is quiet. Both sides share water. Both sides watch the sky. The light has not made men good. It has made goodness more legible and evil more expensive. There are worlds where nothing changes, because nothing can. There are others where law collapses for a season, while the human animal relearns how to choose without being watched. Street altars sprout less like barricades and more like gardens. Statues fall where they must. Elsewhere they stay, annotated by chalk and children's ribbon. In a shrine city that once shipped saints by the thousand, stonecutters carve empty frames alongside the icons. A plaque beneath an unfilled niche reads, "Here the holy will not be installed." The Mechanicus write new canticles in a tense they never used. Not O Omnissiah, receive, but we remember that you remembered us. Apprentices learn to listen for the way a housing wants to be tightened, the way a circuit prefers to be cooled. The old rites remain, but become mnemonics, scaffolds for attention rather than cages for fear. On a subterranean line older than the palace itself, an engine seer lays a palm to a coolant pipe and hears, beneath his breath and the metals, a distant, impossible chuckle. He smiles, though no dogma allows for humor inside a holy machine. He smiles anyway. The Inquisition keeps its black libraries. The locks still turn, the chains still rattle, but between the rattles, a new sound grows, paper opening. There are debates without executions. There are cells left lit a little longer. An interrogator finds herself saying to a trembling astropath, "Tell me what you felt," and meaning the verb felt. She writes what she hears in her own hand, slowly, as if the slowness itself were sacrament. And the throne? The throne remains. Pilgrims file past the outermost gate, as they always have, lay hands to stone, leave offerings that smell of sweat and hope. Deep within, where only gold has ever gone, the seat of impossible power stands like a boat left on dry land at low tide. It does not whine for use. It does not glow for attention. It waits as only a tool can wait, uncomplicated, ready to become what the next hands require: bridge, lock, lantern, altar, chair. What it is not anymore is a tomb. Does he speak? Not as he did. Not to be obeyed. The voice saturating the galaxy dissolves into finer particulates, a weather of meaning. Sometimes it is only the sensation of choosing while being accompanied. Sometimes it is a dream that offers 3 doors and declines to praise you for selecting the 4th. Sometimes it is a sentence in a manual that reads a millimeter kinder than it did last year, though the ink is the same. Sometimes it is a child who looks at the night and does not feel measured by it. Once, only once, a woman kneeling in a Hab chapel hears words. They are not in her language, yet she understands. "You do not disappoint me," they say, "because I no longer require the world to revolve around my disappointment." She laughs so hard she frightens herself, and then she sleeps for 12 hours and wakes with the name of her first teacher on her tongue. He has been dead 20 years. She goes to the market and buys fruit she cannot afford and eats it. In the Sunday, chaos persists, slimmed by context. Worlds still burn, ambitions still metastasize, cruelty still invents excuses that stain. The difference is not statistical, it is metaphysical. In the old age, a man could serve horror and call it holiness, and the universe would assist him. In this age, when he tries, something small, never loud, misaligns. A pin jams. A shipment arrives early and embarrasses a plan built on lateness. A subordinate meets his own child's eyes that morning and forgets, at the critical second, to say the rehearsed sentence. The machine of atrocity still functions, but its teeth do not want to bite. The warp does not close. It clarifies. Storms map themselves. Tides describe their intentions. Tempests confess wind. Navigators stop naming every shape a devourer and begin, carefully, tentatively, to catalogue. On one route, a crew charts, a phenomenon that looks like a city-wide choir made of fog. They listen at a safe distance. The song is in a key no instrument can hold. For 6 minutes, every member of the crew thinks of the same childhood window. They do not report the anomaly because they cannot prove it. They smile at each other at mess. Orcs still laugh. Eldar still foresee more than they can bear. Tyranids still hunger with a logic that prefers silence. The Necrons still wake like old kings who despise calendars. None of them become friends. But the angles bend by degrees away from annihilation and toward narrative. What was apocalypse by default becomes crisis by plot. There is time, sometimes, to decide. What of the Emperor? If you must know, ask the places that need him least. In a midhive, surgical theatre flooded twice a month and stocked by a ledger that bleeds red, a Medicae sticks his hand into a clogged pump and does not flinch when the shock bites him. The pump clears. A life persists. No statue winks. Consider a penal legionnaire who chooses, at a crossroads of dust and heat, to lay down her rifle and carry a wounded enemy 2 kilometers on a back that has not known kindness since childhood. No catechism descends. The sun goes down. She sleeps without grinding her teeth. In a manufactorum archived as non-compliant, a shift of workers refuses a quota designed to break their backs and, instead of dying for defiance, invents a process that meets the number without the breaking. The foreman signs. He will be punished later for the signature. He signs anyway. And somewhere, a child who has never heard a prayer as anything but background noise wakes to a night that is very slightly larger on the inside than it was the evening before. He stands at the window of a hab that leaks and watches a star wink. He does not think emperor. He thinks possible. Outside, an older woman who has thought impossible for 40 years looks up at the same star and decides to plant beans in bad soil. Most die. 2 climb. In the Black Libraries, scholars argue a paradox. In remembering everything, the emperor has forgotten himself. They write it as tragedy. They write it as liberation. Some insist a remnant remains intact, a hearth coal at the center of the Astronomicon that could blaze if fanned. Others say the hearth is the galaxy now, and coals are a rural metaphor for a city too large to burn. The paradox refuses to be owned. It hovers above the stacks like a mote of dust you cannot focus upon. If he is everywhere, where could he stand to speak? If he is in everyone, who could answer? The answer, when it comes, does not settle the question. On the 10,000th day after the light went cold, a ripple crosses the throne room floor like breath stirring a shroud. A single hairline seam opens in a plate that once believed itself perfect. From that seam rises warmth, faint, ordinary, the temperature of a palm. No words, no vision, no command. Just the suggestion of a hand leaving metal after a very long time. Across the palace, a custodian turns his head as if hearing his name before it is spoken. He feels no order, only permission. To sleep for 4 hours, and wake again the next day, and keep watch, not because command demands it, but because watchfulness still feels like love. He leans his spear against the wall and sits, and does not call this blasphemy. He calls it posture. The galaxy is not saved, it is not doomed, it is remembering how to become. Faith remains, but it is less afraid of its own shadow. War remains, but it struggles to dress as destiny when contingency suits it so much better. The Astronomicon shines like a pupil in the night, a cold star whose light no longer burns and therefore, in ways no one can quantify, warms. And in 100 billion small rooms, in the tiny theatre where choice meets chance, a voice that cannot be taped or trapped arrives like the scent before rain. It says nothing clever, It repeats the oldest promise in a tongue older than victory. Continue. The word is not command. It is accompaniment. It is the light that forgets where it came from, so it can be light wherever it lands. Somewhere deep beneath Terra, in a chamber that has known 10,000 years of waiting, a machine built to hold a god holds, instead the shape of patience. Dust pauses in its own fall. If you listen through the hum of systems that will not stop humming while life still needs them, you might hear it, the faintest possible sound of a universe that once knelt standing carefully, vertebra by vertebra, and discovering that its back, though scarred, still knows how to bear weight without breaking. There are no trumpets. There is no final vision. There is a night with stars enough for work. The last empire endures, for now, not because it is righteous, but because it is busy with mending, with arguing, with planting beans in bad soil. The gods watch, relearning patience. The machines purr, relearning purpose. The children sleep, relearning mornings. And the emperor, everywhere and no one, remembers you as you are remembered back, which is to say accurately, which is to say mercifully. The light does not bless, it attends. The dream does not command, it accompanies. And a galaxy that has forgotten how to sleep finally closes one eye, then the other, and rests not because it is safe, but because for the first time in an age, it is allowed to be tired without being punished. The silence that follows is not emptiness, it is room. Continue.